Ryback, I want to get you on here because, like, I think this is an important conversation. You're one of the guys one of the only guys I think that would have this. And this is a conversation that's never been had in professional wrestling. And we brought this up last week in one of the mailbags and everything. And I said, let's get Ryback on to talk about this because you've been very outspoken about this. Bro, remember, like, what's his name? Andrew Yang. When he was running for office, he was like, the whole thing was like, I'm going to go after Vince. Yeah. We're going to unionize wrestling, right? Mm-hmm. And you're an intelligent guy, and you've been a proponent of, like, hey, wrestlers, we should be unionized, right? Like,
by the way, Skip, just so you know, he doesn't say that when you're around. He says, "What a." Yeah. Now you're an intelligent guy.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Right. I get it. Yeah.
But you've made some very pointed comment. Like, you've been out there, you've been outside the box, and like you've said in the past. I don't know if you feel now like all wrestlers should get paid the same. We're all kind of like basically doing. No. Okay. All right. Well, let me finish. Then we'll go back to the fallacies of what maybe I've gotten some of your comments wrong. Right.
Yeah.
But what I want to start is, and I want to start where you're the pro union guy. You want to start a case. Hey, I want to start the conversation from the what do you want to call it? The not the adversarial thing, but from the office for the what's that word you use when you have the opposite perspective? Devil's advocate. I want to be the devil's advocate, okay, and have the conversation from the other side. And the first thing I want to start off with is like, dude, when we want to unionize wrestling, where is the starting point? Who is the union leader? Who is like these are questions that have to if you want to unionize wrestling, we got to start from a starting point.
Yeah, it would have to start from the promoter.
Okay, so where like in your mind, where do we start? Go ahead, Cody.
I feel very uncomfortable calling you Skip.
Yeah,
so I'm going to call you Ryback.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So that was just for you guys. You guys did. I wasn't intending for you to call me Skip the whole time. So yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. Before you answer that, tell him what was the thing that he got wrong, because he told this is one of the reasons why we had you on, because he goes, yeah, Ryback believes everybody should be paid the same. And I go, are you sure? He goes, yeah. And I go, well, let's have him on the show and find out. So can you correct what that is?
Okay, good.
So that was when I left WWE, and I put out that blog that I wrote on the way home from wherever we were, St. Louis back to Vegas. But it was asking a question of more equal pay in wrestling in the terms of its physical acting, and knowing in the different roles that are played, and in knowing guys that are left out on certain things and doing the equal amount of work from appearances and travel dates. And it's not for equal pay. I came right out and said there shouldn't be equal pay across the board because there's different roles in acting and merchandise sales figured in. But WWE, the pay scale in WWE was so far off with guys. And so I was just asking a question on that to get people to think. And then for whatever, how the people will grab onto one thing. And then that was the talking point of the whole thing. And
why does a guy make $9 million and one other guy makes $300,000, but they work the same dates?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And I experienced that from doing more work, working more dates, and fulfilling more obligations. But again, it comes down to downside, and there's a lot of things factored in. And it was never. And the guys that are playing the more important role should make more money, and it was never. Yeah. Well, so the whole thing just they completely just ran a whole different direction with that, and it is what it is. And I've corrected it many times, but
okay, cool. That's aside. That's not really the most important part. But I want to talk about, so if we want to unionize wrestling, okay, who is raising their hand and wanting to be who sits at the bargaining table? Like I said, where do we start this conversation? Because we could everybody can virtue signal about this forever. We could talk about wrestling needs union. We can see a catastrophic injury in the ring, and that guy needs to be taken. So where do we start the conversation?
Yeah, wrestlers are their own worst enemy on it, so you can't start with the wrestlers. It would have to be from a promoter, and they would have to want to do it for the betterment of wrestling in general with that moving forward. Because the way the pay scale in wrestling is in that inner circle, and there's guys making a lot of money in that inner circle, and in every promotion, they have the guys that are making more. Why would anybody that's making a lot of money want to try to disrupt that unless it's coming from the promoter and the organization is trying to actually implement that? And that I gave up on that alone when I saw And like that's with me, and I've got a lot of friends and guys in the business, but with everything that's gone on, like with me in WWE, there's guys and I get messages fully supportive of everything, but they will not rock the boat because they, you know, that's where they make their money. They got to feed their families, and it's just the way that it is.
You know what's kind of funny, Ryback? This is what's funny. In Mexico, unions are very strong and very popular, right? So they had a wrestlers union, right? Listen to this, and you'll love this. And this is why the boys will always be. Yeah.
There was a wrestlers union in Mexico. Interesting.
Yeah, yeah. And for a long time, too. But listen to this. But this is why the boys will always be the boys. So I remember I was in Tijuana, right? And I was in the dressing room, and these veteran wrestlers came out. And they went into the dressing room. They go, you know, guys, for years and years, all these promoters done is, you know, they exploited us, they've used us, they fucked us and all this. But let's band together and let's start a union and let's protect each other.
Yeah.
Fast forward a couple years later, we find out these were stealing money from the wrestlers union, right? And so the wrestlers union broke up. And the other thing is, I wanted to help all because I went to the top really quick in Mexico and I got power and I wanted to unionize. But same thing that happened to you. I would talk to other wrestlers. He goes, what's in it for me? I'm making good money. I'm on top. Yeah. So the top guys have to be unselfish.
And that comes in and this is where like the system that Vince has set up and promoters in general, and it protects them and it's very difficult. And that's why it will take, it's like a new organization or promoter that is willing to, I gave up on it along just with the thing. It's physical acting and there's going to be.
We should be under SAG. Period.
Yeah,
it should be SAG. You know, right.
But we're never going to, we can talk about it all day, but the guys and the way that the system is, and it's just, and I've experienced it, and it's like.
And let me tell you something about the union, Ryback. We should be in a SAG or some type of union because let's start off with one thing. If you're working at a job, right, and they pay overtime, right, you get paid for overtime, bro. How many days did you work overtime in WWE? Every day. Sometimes you're on call 24 hours. You're working literally from the minute you get up to the minute that you sleep, and the next day it's again and again. You get no pension, you get no workman's comp. Like we get.
I've paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to get my health back from injuries that happened while in WWE and from their negligence and things. And it is what it is. It's unfortunate, man. But what are you going to do? You speak up on it, and it's people.
You get heat.
I don't know.
But that's why I think guys like Andrew Yang kind of gave up.
I unfollowed him.
Because like the whole thing is like, dude, it's like you want to. It's like if you want to unionize this business, it's like for what you like. Okay, like what would you want like from a union member standpoint? It's like maybe kind of all right. They're telling me to do something. I don't want to do it. I think it's going to risk my health and stuff. And they know. Now I could speak. You know, I could speak up or go to my union representative and say like, you know, like if say the climate like exists, you know, and everything. But then it's like, okay, if that's where we're going. Like unions, like you don't like your creative, you don't like being told you think you're being devalued doing this, you think that you're putting yourself at health risk doing this, everything. So then you'd have to sit down at the bargaining table and figure out, okay, what under the whole prism of creative is like out of bounds for like a wrestler to do or be asked to do. It's like, and I think the thing is like when we talk about it, you know, in big terms, well, we need to unionize. Like when you think about it, it's like. Who on earth is going to sit down at a table and have this conversation and go over all the prism of creative everything and what we can and can't do and what we and it's like you kind of like sit there at the end of the day. It's like, dude, we're getting paid a lot of money and we have a lot of freedom to do what we want in that ring.
Yeah,
like we're not being forced to do a reverse Frankensteiner off the top rope to a guy that could risk a neck. It's like we're
but Glenn, this to me is much more than that because football players get a pension, basketball players get a pension. Why can't we get a pension? And we work the whole year. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So that's a big deal to me.
Well, I think too, a big problem, and this is something that I can only now speak for myself moving forward. And I think you have to be very savvy on on the contracts unfortunately now there's options on places to go and whatnot. But it is physical acting. I think you need, for me personally, I want to know the role that I'm playing when I go there. A lot of, in general, wrestling contracts, you sign the contract, you get your downside, right? And there's maybe some little small things in there that you might be able to get added in here and there. And then you go sit in the bleachers and you let a bunch of people figure out, and all the politics come into play. And your role could range from the top of the card to the bottom of the card in the course of a 3 or 5 year span, in which that will influence your money heavily. I think pro wrestling contracts in general it's up to the talent. And I've learned this. I learned it the hard way. And you got to be very specific on what you want. And you just need to communicate. And that's very difficult now for an organization too. On the other hand, that's going to take you maybe have to have another department on that, on contracts and things, and for the talent roles. But that whole just sign a contract to go sit in the bleachers and let other people figure it out is a very dangerous thing on that. And it's something that needs to be more specific, but it's up to the talent for that as well. But as far as like the other things too, Glenn, like, WWE Access, WrestleMania, wrestlers are the only people not making money for the whole thing, doing signings, doing 10, 15, 12, 15 signings for the week, all for free. Great, you get to meet a bunch of people. The fans are paying, the WWE is making money, they're selling merchandise, and they're selling concessions and everything else, and you get nothing. But that comes to, I speak up on all this when I did prior. That's up now, and I realize, I go, man, everyone, no one's going to, it's a wash my hands of it. I know now, and you have to negotiate that, and you have to communicate that, and communication is the key individually. The problem is, oftentimes WWE, when you communicate on things that you want with that, they're in such a power position before that, unless you are in a good position, then that's very, very difficult for the majority of guys. And they'll just, if you're coming up from developmental and getting your start, they'll just get rid of you, and they'll plug somebody else in, and they have nothing to lose on it. So. Well,
let's talk about something else that you've been very outspoken on.
Yeah.
And I'm going to come from the devil's advocate perspective on this too, because I got because it's funny, because I've been boys and office, and when you become office, it's like it's not overly different perspective, but you do get a different perspective. It's like, okay, we're telling these guys what to do, and if they don't want to do it, do we punish them? So it's like, it's a different perspective, but I'm still for the boys, right?
You got to protect yourself. That's where you make your money, and you're working for the organization now.
Right. But let's talk about this, and this is one of the things that the problem that you've had is, you built like when you build your own brand with your own creative, your own creative input, and you build a brand and you build the Ryback character, and it's you're let go from the company. Okay, and the company is saying, all right, your whole brand you built here, you can't take that going forward.
Yeah.
Right? We own that. Okay? We own something. And because I'm on the fence with this, I'm very much into your perspective, like, hey, I'm the one that did this. I built this is nobody else. I built my brand. Why can't I continue to do my brand going forward? But then it's like, the WWE, if you look at it from their perspective, they're saying, it's like, okay, wait a second. We spend a lot of money, millions of dollars on production. We put you on TV, and we throw you out there to a vast audience. Okay? Mm-hmm. Had you not been in this system, you would have never had that ability under our system here to be presented and marketed to the world like you have.
How many matches has the logo had?
No.
That logo don't make no money without all the wrestlers either.
Right.
It goes both ways.
Right.
But the thing, that's
the thing. I'm providing the devil's advocate perspective.
No, yeah.
I want to hear this argument.
But the thing is, before you answer Ryback, my answer to that would be why. So if they gave you all this promotion, because I'm in the same situation, AAA. When somebody comes in with a new name, what we do is we don't take it from them. Okay, lend us your name, the time that you're here, and when you're gone, you can take your name. They could have given you your name back, or at least shared, but they didn't do any of the two, right? Am I correct?
Yeah, they have every right now. If they come up with the character and the gimmick and everything, I think they have full right of keeping it if they want.
Yeah, that's their IP.
And I have a lot of things. This is why I want to trademark. This is why when I had the facts of the case and they were caught lying to the USPTO, which is why I won my name. Though they lied to me up front. I wanted to trademark this before going, and they strong-armed me, and they lie, and they say, no, we'll take care of everything. They don't ask for permission with it. And I knew all these details, and I had all my legal stuff going on prior with this in private conversations with them that they lied to me on things. So it was a little different situation on that. But I think oftentimes it's up to the talent. If they did create the character, they have to communicate that they want that up front. But WWE, the way they work, well, they just won't bring in a lot of guys if they want to have full ownership of it. But and I think that the promotion is fully entitled to it if they came up with absolutely zero of the whole thing, though, of mine on anything.
Let me ask you a question. So I didn't know that you went to court with them and you won your name.
Yeah, it was through the USPTO, the United States Trademark Office. That started, and since when I left, I had the big guy in Feed Me More, and then just to give you a brief, when I walked out and let my contract expire, and I walked out with that, one of the reasons I legally changed my name on top of that was this, to avoid all this. They sent a form with an NDA for me to sign over all my social media, give them at the time my Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram. I don't know if Facebook was on there. The Instagram all connected on that with an NDA. And when we said no on that, that's when all my social media problems started. Which then I went and legally changed my name to avoid this, so that legally they should not have been able to, whatever trademark, copyright things they sent to the social media companies, they legally should not have been able to do that, because I owned everything else, and I'm legally Ryback Reeves, which I just posted. My attorney, we had to send letters to all the social media companies. They're finally unlocking my accounts because I won the trademark through that. But that started in 2018, I believe. The renewal was coming up for my name with that, and I had already filed for it. WWE let it go to the very last day and refiled, which then we had to then start the process of the battle for the USPTO that went on from whatever 2018 just until a month ago when I got awarded the name. They reached out, with Vince was still in charge. This is before all the stuff with him. They reached out to settle it a year and a half ago with all of this, and we agreed on everything. The social media stuff, the only thing we did not agree on is they felt they should not compensate me for anything, and which I said then we're not settling on that. They reached out again when Hunter and Stephanie got put in position that they wanted to try to amicably repair the relationship with everything. I go, great, the settlement is here. This is everything. Let's go. They delayed it for the thing went all the way to the end. They realized they were going to lose. They did a deposition, everything with their attorney. They then, the final month before it went to decision, rather than losing it publicly, they go, oh no, we're going to let it go with it. And then it was awarded to me. It had to go through an appeal process, which is one of the reasons why I delayed coming on here. There was an appeal process, just so you guys know. I didn't want it to say anything for them to then go, or to have somebody appeal it and then start this all over with everything. So I let it just finish, let it ride out. I got it. Now we're good to go. But wow. It cost hundreds of thousands.
5 years. 5 years.
Hundreds of thousands of dollars on top of what I've spent on getting my health back. But it was the principle. And it's all a game to Vince. And this everything with the social media stuff they've done, I've talked about. And I have no fear. And I'll literally lose everything. I go, but I can control getting my health back, get my health back, and I can get back, and everything's going to be fine.
I'm so happy that you finally got your name back. But let me ask you a question. The last day that you left WWE, did you talk to Vince or talk to Triple H, or did you just leave? Or who was the last conversation you had, and what was that like? Like, I'm leaving because I'm frustrated. No, we want you to stay, or you leave. What was that like?
It was the last match with Kalisto was at Payback in Chicago. We drove to TV in St. Louis. I had already been thinking of when I was going to get out. My back and shoulder were completely, and they were giving me Toradol and cortisone. The Toradol was multiple times a year, and my shoulder ate away all the shoulder cartilage, but the Toradol was every day. I knew, and I kept expressing, and I tried having conversations with Hunter multiple times, and part of it was my fault, and a lot of it was theirs. But and telling him I was injured and something's really wrong with me. The doctors and all of that knew. Nobody gives a the problem, and I'm not going to be take myself off the road. I was reaching out to Hunter to try to get him to look into this to get me off the road. I needed to get MRIs on my back, which I got when I left, and I needed a 5-disc fusion and shoulder replacement with all of that. But I could have just taken myself and said to Hunter, I need to get off the road, and we had back and forth on this multiple times. It was really, really frustrating, but that was what was going on leading up to all of this, with that and not re-signing the contract and everything with Kalisto and with Vince and with the money. There was a lot that went into all this. The last day in St. Louis, they were going to start embarrassing me on TV, and they were going to start devaluing me pretty quickly with this. And I was already, and I just go, and I'd talked to them enough times I went in. Mark Carrano was in his talent relations with Ric Flair actually, and I just walked in. I go, take me off your TV show. I'm going home. I go. I get my bags. Carrano comes running back in, and he goes and I guess he went and talked to Vince. I know he talked to Vince or Hunter, and he goes, "Do you want to go talk to Vince?" Whatever. I go, I never want to talk to him ever again. I got my bags and I left. I went to Hooters. I had some beers and chicken wings, and I flew home the next day.
Let me ask you a question. I'm gonna throw out. I'm gonna play sort of like word association here, and I want to like I'm gonna give you like a name or like something, and you tell me whether or not your relationship with them was like, good, bad, neutral, right?
Yeah.
Okay, WWE legal.
While in WWE or after?
Well, let's say while. Well, like after. Well, while.
While there, I knew nothing about them. We don't deal with them. Well,
after bad. Right.
After, I don't, not good. The guy, my deposition, the WWE attorney, where I had to go, we had to do a deposition here in Vegas. They had to fly in. He looks like an NWO, like an evil Matt Lauer, to give you a description of the WWE attorney who handled this. Looked like a little pervert, just sitting in there with like weird hairline. I kid you not. I go into the deposition. We're in the suit. My attorney's there. All the people are there that recording the whole deal. I've got my Starbucks coffee. The guy, though, the first time, he tries to mad dog me as I come in and just staring a hole through me. I literally just stop and stare a hole back at it. But the guy had it like,
you're working. He's working.
Yeah, he was trying to scare me to make me nervous. I couldn't have done that deposition any better for the 2 hours. It was all I had to do was just tell the truth the whole time. And this guy had a book this big of all the information. They've been following everything that I've been doing. They had so much stuff ready to go in there, and I had a thing for every single one. After it was done, his entire tone changed, and we had a nice conversation actually after with everything. And I can tell you guys this with that, but that was my only interaction with the legal as far as my attorney going. My attorney dealt with them on a lot of occasions.
How's your relationship with Hunter?
Man, I want to like Hunter a lot, and I think early on it was very good. And he was the one that actually came up like doing the double stack for the shell shock. Mm-hmm. And it was, and he used to come up, we used to have little conversations and I don't know what changed on any of that, but I could tell you, and it's all a game with how things work. And I can understand from Hunter's perspective. And again, I think we have a lot in common and everything's good. And I loved him growing up, and why it really bothers me. When I was in developmental, when they were going to try to stick me back in developmental after Skip Sheffield and let me rot down there after the ankle injury, after they fired me, and I had to get attorneys, and this is where all the legal stuff started. Mm-hmm. I had a pretty intense phone call with Hunter while I was in FCW, Florida Championship Wrestling, where I just essentially told him I'm moving back to Vegas, I'm leaving, and they're going to put me on the road. And because I knew I had them with everything going on, that they tried to fire me when I was still not cleared, that they legally couldn't do that. So I understand, and I'm a guy, I was only in Nexus for a brief period. I hadn't done anything in the business, right? So a developmental guy kind of telling him what I'm going to do probably never really sat well for a long time. But everything was smooth when I got back up there. We had meetings in Stanford. He helped me a lot early on, and then he used to come up and just laugh, just little jokes here and there, and brilliant mind with everything. But towards the end, we had some heated conversations with things, and where I'd go through him before I'd go to Vince, and it was pretty intense on my end, and where I told him, I told him flat out, I just go, you're the biggest disappointment in my wrestling career. I grew up loving you, man. I had posters of you in my room. I started working out because of you, and I go, you're just a disappointment. He put his head down. He says, please don't say that. But that's how I felt. But I always felt that I communicated better, and it's all the games and things. And I never ever tried to ever disrespect him or anything. I have a lot of respect for him and his career and everything. But my issues came from the legal stuff and the lies that they told me and then me over multiple times. How's your
relationship with Vince?
We talked quite a bit. It was pretty good. I'll tell you the one thing that bothers me, and it's from the system there. And with them, is I was always told never to talk about all the ankle stuff and the legal stuff with him. With that, and so me and him never talked about anything of where a lot of the friction was coming from underneath him. I tried.
So he probably wasn't aware. You think?
No, he was aware. I think he was aware enough, but there's a lot he couldn't have been aware of. But we did talk, and I had conversations with him. I go, there's shit that goes on, and again, this guy, he's running a multi-billion-dollar business. nothing but respect and having a business.
$9 billion company.
Yeah,
right.
so it's not like I'm telling him how to run his business, but you guys know how things can kind of go from the trickle down thing in the tone that is set and in the people that they have working there and I knew with the different people like Carano, the biggest piece in the world. The guy's gone, right? Everybody, I don't think you're going to ever have a person on here that's going to speak highly of that guy. Had a lot of issues with that guy, with things. And I tried to kind of just talk to Vince about that and like the that was going on so that we could get into what was really going on, but it never got there on that.
What did you think of Disco's mentor,
Terry Taylor?
Johnny Ace?
Oh, Johnny Ace.
I like Johnny, man. Johnny was always straightforward with me. And Johnny was really good. Johnny rehired me. Johnny hired me from Tough Enough. He rehired me when I got released in developmental. He was always a big supporter of mine, I feel, with everything. After I can tell you, I had a heated conversation with Johnny when they fired me. He called to fire me after Nexus, my ankle injury, and I told him I was in Gold's Gym in St. Pete. Tatanka would work out there sometimes. And he called to fire me, and I cut the promo because of everything going on. And I just told him, I go, you're not firing me. I go, in 1 year, I'm going to be the biggest star on the roster, which arguably was 1 year from the time that conversation, at least in that conversation with that. And we always had a great respect for each other because I think I never held it against him calling to fire me. And I think he respected that I stood up for myself with everything. And because if I didn't, I would have been fired with all of it. And I never would have existed.
What was your relationship with the doctors? Bro, they're giving you Toradol all the time. I'm thinking there was a great relationship. That seems kind of
that's very strong.
I say great from the standpoint of we laughed and joked around and hung. And they're not bad guys. It's like having an office position that you just talked about. Your obligation is to serve the organization. With that, and when you're
like the NFL guys giving guys Toradol,
I gave them, but you guys know how it is in things when you're up there. They're not. One day turns into a week, turns into a month, turns into years of doing stuff, and like there's no off season, there's no rest period. You don't take yourself off the road because you're making more money when you're working every day, and you just go one more week, and you keep going, but like you don't realize the damage, and again. It is their obligation. That's where something like a union would come and things would be beneficial for wrestlers because wrestlers can be their own worst enemies in this stuff. And
for sure.
I got a question for you.
I'm not like Punk. I don't hold anything against. I take the blame for me not looking into my injuries on my own time. But you don't want to, right?